Later. Okay, so we're going to delve a little bit deeper into the gratitude practice. So now that you guys know where to start is just a simple spreadsheet, right? Very basic spreadsheet is where you want to start. And it doesn't have to be anything complicated, right? But you want to make sure that you are writing these things down and recording it and doing it as a practice, right? And so I'll share with you the one that this is a template that you guys all have access to. And if anyone else wants it, I'm happy to share. But this is a basic template, right? You don't have to use this. You can write it out in a notebook if you want, but this is kind of the concept of it, right? I am grateful for, you list 10 things, right? Part of the reason why I have it month by month is so that you can reflect. Because yes, to create the habit, you want to do this for 3 months straight. But to get to the beginning stages of incorporating this as who you are, you want to do this for 180 days, right? But you're going to see growth. So if December is your first month, when you get into January, you're going to notice the things you're grateful for start to shift. And by February, it'll shift again. By the time you get to the end of 6 months, you're going to see some pretty serious growth. And it's exciting to see that, right? And as part of your gratitude practice, I want you to experience that because that is definitely something to be grateful for. Because you're physically going to be able to see that you are now doing gratitude at a level most people don't get to experience. And that's really exciting, right? It's something people talk about, but it is challenging to reach. So now, for those of you who have been doing this a while or even just getting started, you'll notice like the first week, pretty easy, right? You look around and it's like, I'm grateful for this, I'm grateful for this, and you're just cherry picking. But then you get into like the second or third week and you're like, okay, I can't pick the same thing twice. And you start to run out of things. And then it starts to feel like work. And that's typically when people give up and quit. So what is the workaround? Okay. The whole purpose of this exercise is to get you to open your eyes to things that you have been taken for granted. And so one of the things that you can do to make it a habit to do that more frequently, notice the things that you're taking for granted, is a game that little kids love to play, right? And the game exists because of gratitude. Anyone want to guess what that game is? Because you've all played it. And some of you might still be playing it if you have kids and grandkids. It's a game
Really?
called I Spy.
Yeah.
I Spy with my little eye. Just play I Spy. That's it. And believe me, you're going to start picking out things that you've been taking for granted, right? Something as simple as I spy with my little eye something that is blue. Okay. How many things can you find that are blue that you can be grateful for, right? And you build from there. The whole purpose of this isn't to overcomplicate things because we tend to do that very easily, don't we?
Yeah.
And so the secret to this keep it simple. Keep it simple, right? And I Spy, like what I love about I Spy is it is taking advantage of one of your sensories, which is your eyes. What do you see that you can be grateful for? However, we have a total of five sensories, right? So, on top of things that we see, we also have things that we can smell, that we can touch, that we can taste, right? We can hear. So, elevate your I Spy, right? You can also incorporate things that you smell that you're grateful for, things that you hear that you're grateful for, things that you touch and taste that you're grateful for. You can incorporate all those things. And when you do that, you're going to find yourself with a laundry list of things. But not only that, when you do it consciously, when you create awareness consciously, eventually it'll become an unconscious awareness, right? So simple things like in my neighborhood in the spring, when I take my dog for a walk, there are lilac bushes, right? And I've lived in the same neighborhood for, it'll be 8 years in February now, right? And before I started my gratitude practice, it was like, meh, flowers, like the air smells, was all I was thinking, right? It was like, okay, spring's here, whatever. But since incorporating gratitude, right? Every spring when those lilacs bloom, every time I open my windows or I set foot out the door and I smell it, gratitude. Because I didn't get to experience that where I lived before. So these are things that you start to pick up on. These are things that you start to have more awareness of. And when you do it consciously, eventually, it's almost like a reflex. You start doing it automatically, right? So as you go through this process of creating your list of 10, if you feel like, I'm hitting a wall, I spy. What do you notice with your senses, right? You've got five senses. If you incorporate one or two, you're going to come up with 10 very quickly. So start there, right? And here's the thing. Memories are tied to our sensories. So when you practice the I Spy technique, it might trigger things, other things to be grateful for. It might take you down a path of a core memory or just a memory in general, right? Like for me, anytime I smell fresh baked bread, I think of my childhood because my mom's best friend when I was really little, she used to babysit us a lot. And this woman, always baking bread. I loved her house. I would be like walking down the block to her house and I could smell this bread. It was amazing. And what that memory brought back wasn't just like the taste of the bread, the texture of the bread, how warm it was, how soft it was to hold it in my hands. It's what that woman represented to me as a kid. She was my safe space. She was like a second mom to me. So it brings all of those memories back. And just in that, so much to be grateful for. Not just the bread, her home, the environment she created for me, my interactions with her, the conversations I had with her, things I learned from her. So much. So that is a great way to add to your list and find things to be grateful for when you feel like, oh, I can't think of anything. You can't think anything because you're overcomplicating it. Keep it simple. It's why we don't have the level of happiness that we want because we're taking for granted things that are simple, right? But when you slow down and you take a minute to have gratitude for the little things, that's where the joy comes from, right? If you look at really little kids, when they're happy, it's like next level happy, right? I mean, I don't know about you, but have you noticed that kids very rarely walk anywhere, right? They're like sprinting. Everywhere they go, they're running because they can't get to their destination fast enough. They're so bloody excited. Why do they have that level of excitement? Because they celebrate the little things, right? My friend's daughter, when she was really little, I want to say she was about 3 years old, she wanted to play in the rain, and her mother's like, nah. And I kind of went, I'll take her. So I got her into her little raincoat. She wanted to ride her tricycle, which was soaking wet, but she was so excited and proud to ride this thing. She didn't care if her butt got wet, right? So like I didn't even get a chance to wipe the seat down with a towel. Like she just plopped her little butt down and was like biking around her little neighborhood, right? And at the age of 3, the thing that she was most excited about, the thing that drew her to go outside in the pouring rain, in the cold of Vancouver, because like Vancouver, cold and wet, it goes to your bone. It hurts. She didn't care. She wanted to go outside because of snails. She loved snails. And here's why, because I asked her, I was like, Megan, why snails? Like of all the creatures in the why snails? What is your fascination with snails? You know what she told me? She's like, they're magical because they come with a house, right? She's like, I go somewhere. She's like, I have to leave my house. I can't carry it with me. But these guys, it's like it's a tech, it comes with them. So if they want to go home, they're home. They're always home. She thought that was absolutely wonderful, right? And she also liked the way that they moved. Because, like, if you watch their little feet, they're like a wave, right? She thought that was really cool because when she walks, she's like, kind of walk like a little giant. It's like clumpy and I make noise. But these guys, she's like, they're quiet because they do this with their feet. It's ripply like waves and it's really cool to watch, right? And so, like, this kid, for the next 2 hours that I was following her around the neighborhood, she collected any snail, every snail that she could find, and was putting them on her tricycle. I'm like chasing after her to make sure she doesn't accidentally run over one that fell off because she would have been devastated if she killed one. But it's just the wonder and awe that this kid had over a snail, right? As grown-ups, like when we look at a snail, what do we think? Huh? It's a snail, whatever, right? But kids don't look at the world that way. Everything's magic, right? That's why they stop. They run and they stop when they find something. They're like, oh, what's this? Oh, it's a blade of grass. And we're like, what? And they're like, but look at what we can do with this. right? I don't know if you remember this, but I remember doing this as a kid. Those really long blades of grass, right? If you're an 80s kid, you'll remember this. You used to hold it between your thumb and here, and you'd hold it like this, and then you blow, and it would make a sound.
It never worked for me.
Yeah, but you probably kept trying to get it to work, right? Because you knew it could do that. And it's just like a blade of grass can make a sound like that. Wow, how cool, right? We have to go back to that if you want to find that level of joy. We got to slow down, right? And take a moment to appreciate our surroundings and what we are being gifted every day. Because when we don't, that's when the frustrations come up, right? That's when things like anger and depression and sadness start to rear its ugly head. And it's not to say those feelings are negative, because here's something else you're going to discover as you practice your gratitude. Feeling angry, feeling frustrated, feeling sad, those are not negative feelings. They're just feelings, and there's a purpose behind it. So if you're feeling mad or sad or depressed, don't deny yourself those feelings. The fact that you can feel those things is a reason to celebrate. It makes you human, right? Just maybe don't dwell there for too long. Like myself, I'll set a timer. It's like, okay, you know what, Tomoko? You want a pity party? We'll party for 15 minutes, but then we're moving on, right? But they serve a purpose because here's the reason why. If you've ever felt sad, can you relate to someone when they're feeling sad? You can empathize with them, not just sympathize, right? Because sympathy is when you imagine what it must feel like. Empathy is when, like, you've been there. You know what it's like at the core, right? That creates human connection. And that is a powerful thing. So that's why those things that you might think are not so great, they're wonderful. And you're going to start to recognize that as you go through your gratitude practice, right? And here's the other thing that happens as you go through this gratitude practice, because yes, it's going to get you to slow down a little bit, right? Just like little kids do. And it's going to create, as a result of that, a curiosity, right? That you've always had, but you've kind of just sort of pushed it aside because life got busy. It's going to bring that back, right? And here's what's going to happen as a result of you developing that and bringing that back into your life. Because if you're curious, it makes it harder to be in conflict with someone, right? If you've ever watched little kids fight, it's a very different conversation, right? Because one kid will do something to make another kid either angry or upset. And the kid who's angry or upset, what is the first thing they say? And they do this every time. Why did you do that to me? Why did you do that? Right? They may be feeling the hurt, but the first place a kid goes is curiosity. They want to know what was going on with you that you did this. They seek to understand naturally. But as we get older, we stop doing that because we get all this information, right? And we become wiser. And as a result of that, ego kicks in and we're like, we're smarter than everybody. And so what happens is a certain situation will happen and you'll make an assumption or you'll make a judgment call. And now, oh, now it's on. Right? And that's where the conflict comes because we get defensive. But if you tap into that curiosity part of you that you've always had, you'll find yourself reverting back to that childlike state where you're not making assumptions, you're not judging, you're curious. You're going to be like, why? I want to understand. And when you do that, guess what happens to the conflict? It dissipates. Because the reason for conflict is somebody feels like you didn't understand. But if you show someone, if you demonstrate someone, I want to understand. I want to connect with you. Tell me more. You've just now made it very hard for the other person to be mad at you because you've given them the very thing that they were looking for. Those types of things start to come out of this. You're going to find yourself having more deeper, meaningful conversations and less of this. And here's the crazy thing. In the beginning, it might be something that you're consciously working to accomplish, but more than likely, it's something that's going to happen organically because the way that you're thinking and the way that you're perceiving the world becomes different, right? Because with gratitude, like I said, one of the things that happens is it slows you down a little bit, right? You're not racing through life anymore. So when you start to slow down, guess what else happens? You start listening. You start receiving. And so when you start paying attention and listening and becoming more aware of what's happening around you, you become less reactive too. Right? And some of you have already experienced this. You're finding yourself in situations where like you're in there like guns blazing, right? You're like, I'm here to take someone out. Doesn't happen so much anymore, right? Because you are already starting to slow down a little bit, observe, be curious, listen, ask questions. So you have no reason to pull out those guns. And so a situation that could really become a situation suddenly isn't. Those things start to happen as you dive deeper into gratitude, right? You're going to find yourself having more patience because of your newfound awareness. You're going to find yourself being less judgmental because you're more curious. That's where all of this is leading to as you continue to do this day by day, right? That's why it's important to do this every day. Now, here's what I'm going to tell you. Are you going to skip a day or two, or maybe even three? You might. A lot of us do, right? When that happens, Do not beat yourself up. Okay, promise me you don't beat yourself up if you miss a day or two. Just make sure you get back into it and continue on with this practice, because the end result of this, you're going to find something most people only talk about ever finding. You're going to feel things that most people never get to feel. Is it worth pursuing? Absolutely, because you're going to have deeper relationships with people. You're going to connect with people in ways you've never imagined. So keep going, right? And give yourself grace, because this is all part of the gratitude process. So if you hit a point where you're like, oh, I'm going to skip today because I'm not feeling it, right? And then even though you're like, I'm going to do it later, I'm going to do it later, and then all of a sudden it's tomorrow. Don't beat yourself up. Instead, find gratitude in yourself for returning to it. You didn't give up. You kept going. That's something to celebrate, right? So now you know, in terms of pursuing this, yes, you are going to face some challenges. That is to be expected. But then simplify, right? Become aware of yourself, your senses, what your body can do, what you're able to observe in your day-to-day, right? Take moments, slow down, right? If you're ever feeling like, oh, it's getting stressful, oh, I'm getting frustrated in your day, take a second, because chances are the reason why you're stressed and frustrated and feeling overwhelmed, you're moving too fast, right? You're racing. Slow down. Because I bet you anything, when you do, all of a sudden you're going to go, oh, I can handle this. I'm okay. Right? Because you'll start breaking things down. Right? We're in a world right now where information is coming at us hard and fast. And one of the words that keeps coming up in our day-to-day work life that is celebrated, but I don't think it should be, is multitasking. Guys, we are not built to multitask.
True.
That is encouraging ADHD behavior. And it is exhausting. It's frustrating. It's what stresses people out. So don't put yourself in that situation, right? Because here's what I'm going to tell you. The most highly successful people in the world, they appear to get a lot done. But you know the one thing they don't do? They don't multitask. If you study them, as one gentleman has, and he actually wrote a book about it. His name's Gary Keller, and he wrote the book, The One Thing, because he was trying over years to figure out what is their secret? How did they become so successful? Because the most highly successful people do one thing at a time. And I know all of you have experienced this. What happens when you focus on one thing at a time? You get in the zone, right? You get in the zone, and all of a sudden, you're like doing a task at a very high level. Like the intensity is insane, but it feels fantastic, right? When you're in that zone. It's
Laundry.
Right, but you feel invincible because it's just like, all right, this is what I'm going to do. I'm just going to do this. I'm just going to focus on this and nothing else. And you get in the zone, right? Like when you're working on a project at work with no distractions, how much of that do you get done?
I got a lot. I get a lot done just
You
Friday
get
even.
a crazy amount done and at a very high level. That is the secret to highly successful people. They do one thing at a time. If you look at their day planner, right? They are not booked in back-to-back meetings. No, they do one meeting a day, right? It's like today, this is what I'm doing today. This is it from this time to this time. And it's usually the whole day. But they get a stupid amount done, right? Are they stressed about it? Maybe, but not as stressed as if they had like, I've got a meeting from 9 to 10 with Joe. And then from 10 and 11, I have a meeting with Samantha. And then from 11 to 12, I've got an early lunch meeting. And then I'm skipping lunch at 12. Like, oh my God, no. But if you do one thing, you can get a lot done, right? And this goes back to like, slow down, focus. You're going to feel a lot less pressure. You're going to feel a lot less stress. You're going to have a lot more awareness and you're going to have a lot more fun, right? But you start having these realizations when you incorporate gratitude into your life, right? When you make it more than just a practice, when you make it a part of who you are. Because here's the other thing I want you to observe. When you're in a busy mall, when you're in a grocery store that's packed, who draws your attention, right? More than likely, like especially right now, when you see like the mom's out shopping or their dad's out shopping with the little ones, that kid who is so bloody excited for Christmas, right? And is just exuding joy, you will sense that energy before you see them. Because there is something about that level of happiness that is magnetic, that draws people, right? Because how many times have you been in like crowded malls and crowded grocery stores where like strangers like, just see that cute baby, right? You can have that. You can have that. You can be that. You've probably even encountered celebrities that there's just like, there's something about that person that makes you turn your head, right? It's like, it's just a joy to be in their presence because they're just exuding happiness, right? There is something about being in their presence that makes you feel warm and fuzzy. People who have that level of joy, they have that. And if you've ever been in the presence of people like that, you know exactly what I'm talking about, right? They say this about people like Carol Burnett and Julie Andrews because they exude joy, right? Those are people who they live in gratitude. It's not just a habit, it's a part of who they are, right? Another one who kind of figured this out young. And I haven't seen him in a while, but I'm pretty sure it hasn't changed. But I got to experience this when he was, oh gosh, late 20s, early 30s, I think. Is and I just listened to a podcast with him, is Michael Bublé. That man, um, when it comes to music, he loves music next level. And I remember having brunch with him. It was the weirdest brunch I ever had. Um, because this man could not stop singing. He's eating breakfast, and as he's chewing, he's singing the next song that comes into his head because he loves music that much. But being in his presence, even at that time before, and this was before he was famous, by the way, um, it just being in his presence, the energy he exuded, like it just made me happy to hang out with him because music made him that level of happy. Right. And people noticed, the people in the restaurant were like looking at him like, oh my God, that guy's so funny. Right. But there is a magnetism to that. People want to be around that because it makes them feel good. Right. And Bublé does that. Julie Andrews does that. Carol Burnett does that. And if you choose to practice gratitude to the point that it becomes who you are, you will have that. Some of you are already experiencing this, who have been doing this a while and are about to hit 180 days. You probably have these crazy experiences of random animals coming up to you, random kids running up and hugging you, right? You're probably the first one picked when someone is looking around a busy street, looking to find somebody to ask directions to. You're probably their number one pick. Because when you exude that level of gratitude and joy, you also become a safe space for people too. And so you're going to draw that, you're going to attract that. Right? People want a piece of that. And here's the other thing that I'm going to forewarn you of. As you dive deeper into this, you are also going to lose people. Because misery likes company, and they do not like the company of happy people. So anyone you currently have in your life that is a constant complainer, is always miserable, has nothing good to say, they're going to gradually move away from you. They're going to gradually disappear out of your life because you're going to feel like too much for them. And that is not a bad thing, right? Maybe down the road, when they decide to choose happiness, you'll meet again. But anyone who carries negativity with them will just naturally fall away. The opposite is also true. You are going to start attracting like-minded, happy, grateful people to you. You're going to start having different conversations. And these are all good things. Because the other side of doing this for yourself, and you're going to find this as you hit your 180 days, you're going to want to share this. What you feel once gratitude becomes a part of your life, you're going to want to share this feeling because it feels amazing. And I tell you, when you embrace this, nothing is going to get you down. Things are going to happen that aren't so great. But once you build that foundation, that's as far as you're going to go. And like I said, when you have a solid foundation, you can build things on it. Right? And when you have a solid foundation, no matter how hard life may try to break it, it's not going to break. And that is such a great feeling to have that kind of confidence in yourself to go, mm-mm. Yeah, there's a lot of crappy things happening around me, but I got me. I'm just fine because I ain't gonna break. That that is such a powerful feeling. And here's the other thing. People notice that about you. Sometimes people look at you like you're downright crazy because they're like, your life is shit right now. And why are you so happy? Well, unless you've embraced gratitude as who you are, that's a tough one to explain because you're going to understand at the core when gratitude is part of who you are, there's a lot to be grateful for. There's a lot to be grateful for. And when you know that, nothing's really going to get you down. So I hope this was helpful for you in figuring out how to stay engaged as you pursue this gratitude practice. All right, like I said, keep it simple. You don't have to overcomplicate things, right? If you want to write things like a gratitude journal, yes, go ahead and do that. But in terms of the basics of the practice itself, simple, simple, simple. Because gratitude is simple, right? Little kids are doing it every day and they're not overcomplicating things. You know, when's the last time you saw a 3-year-old sit down and say, like, I'm going to write my journal right now about all the things I'm grateful for, right? They're not doing that. They're just choosing to be happy, choosing to be curious and thankful and happy. That's all this is. Make a choice every day, right? And how you do it is just a simple list of 10 things that you're grateful for. That's it, right? That's it. And you're going to get very good at it because I tell you, when you get to that 180 days, your list is going to be more than that. It's going to be a piece of cake because everywhere you turn, just like when you were really little, you're going to discover there's a lot to be thankful for. So get out there, have a good week, and we'll continue this conversation next Saturday.